Hello and welcome to an AVForums video overview of the WiiM Ultra streaming preamp. My name is Ed Selley, I'm the hi-fi editor for AVForums, and a little bit like the Blue Sound video, which you'll find elsewhere on this channel, this is more talking, less exciting background video pieces, because whilst this is not quite as small and inert a box as the Blue Sound is, it's still a relatively small and unassuming box, but it does so many things and it is very, very important, so we are talking about it. Right, the Ultra is not much of a secret. We saw a prototype at the Munich high-end show earlier this year. It sits above the existing Pro and Pro Plus models, which do an awful lot, but stay in the small plastic box school of industrial design. And that's no criticism. At the price that both of them leave the shop for, you really can't ask for much more than what the WiiMs do. They are sensational bits of kit. However, the Ultra is here to move the game on. Now, when I say that, this is still a streamer and we'll do the streaming bit, but it's so much more than that. It offers the scope to actually start using it and constructing a system around it that bears no resemblance to, well, almost any other way of building a system at the price. There are some fascinating possibilities here, but before we launch into those possibilities, let's actually look at what the product does, because it's pretty substantial. It's built around a pair of ESS DACs. It's closer in performance terms to the Pro rather than the Pro Plus with its AKM hardware. This means that you get PCM supported to 24192 and there is no DSD support. If you play a DSD track, it recognises that and it cross-converts it to PCM. So there's absolutely nothing lost in the process, but if you must have your DSD 1-bit native sounding as Philips and Sony argued into being, this isn't the product for you. I don't necessarily think that matters terribly, but it's worth pointing out. As well as being able to play your own files at those sample rates, it has streaming service support, Amazon, let's get this right, Spotify, Tidal and Qobuz. There's no Apple Music and there's no Deezer, but as it supports both AirPlay and Chromecast, you could get those to your WiiM without having to try desperately hard. If you enjoy shouting at your products, it is compatible with Alexa as well. There has been a slight spruce up to the multi-room interface since the last time I spent a meaningful amount of time using a WiiM product, for other than just testing it in the time-honoured fashion as a piece of test source equipment. So that's a bit slicker than it was. So, you know, we're getting to the point where there's enough WiiM hardware that you could look at making a whole house of those devices. Now, we've done the streaming bit, but we're only just getting started. If you look around the back, and this is small enough that I'm just going to turn it around like so and so, you get, in no particular order, a line in on an RCA, HDMI ARC, which is the first time we've seen this in a standalone source piece of WiiM componentry. The WiiM amp obviously has got HDMI ARC as well. An optical input, and this is joined by a phono input. This supports moving magnet and moving coil phono stages, and it means that really the closest product we've looked at on AVForums prior to this point that is sort of close to what the WiiM Ultra does is the NAD M66. We didn't do a video for the NAD M66, but there's a long and involved review of it, and it's tremendous, and it's many, many, many times, I mean, getting on for 10, actually more than 10 times the price of the Ultra. This is a fully functional hub. And what's more, I've tested the phono stage. I've tested it with a Project Evo 2, which you could argue is roughly price comparable, the sort of thing that you might end up connecting to a WiiM Ultra. God. But I've also bolted my Vertair in the back of it, principally because I could, and principally because it was the closest moving coil cartridge I had to hand. It works brilliantly, if I'm honest. The only caveat to that is you can just about see here, the ground connection is on a socket, and it works brilliantly, except that the vast majority of turntables on the market today, including every single turntable that's currently here, uses a fork, a sort of hook style grounding post arrangement, which means that you need to resort to blue tack, the audiophile's friend to get the grounding connection to stay near the socket. Once you have Blu-tacked it into place, completely silent. Genuinely impressive. I don't know how many people are going to use this, but it's fabulous. So yes, it can do that as well. So you can have, you know, just for the sake of argument, you can be using this for your streaming. You can have a turntable coming in. It will obviously then take your television feed, and yeah, you don't need any other hardware than that, which for £350 is pretty absurd value for money. WiiM isn't done there either. As with previous WiiM streamers, there is an onboard EQ system. There is the ability to use your phone's microphone to record the in-room response and see if you can make corrections based on that. And what's more, you can make EQ adjustments for each individual input. So if you found that, for example, your vinyl response was a little bit on the bloomy side, you could make arrangements to, you know, cut some of the mid-range, tweak that, boost the upper registered. Equally, if you just wanted a bit more heft when you're watching television, you can have, for the HDMI ARC input and the HDMI ARC input alone, just a little bit more bass, just to make sure that explosions carry the necessary heft. There is, of course, a dedicated subwoofer output as well, if you want to bolt one of those on, and there are bass management options too. WiiM really has covered all the bases on this. They've also upped the ante on the casework. I'm always a bit loose as to exactly what comes across in the videos in terms of how products look and feel. I mean, I was looking at the Luxman video and I thought it looked pretty decent. So, you know, hopefully this has come across as well. This is an order of magnitude nicer than both the smaller WiiM streamers and the WiiM amp. The amp is a similar shape and size, but this feels nicer than the amp does. I mean, there's an amp review on the site. I have tested it. I do have some basis to make that statement. The big step forward is the front panel display. I know that a number of people don't give two hoots about front panel displays on streamers. I really like them. I think they provide a focal point. It also allows you to browse and access menu functionality which is otherwise on the app. And WiiM, being as they are completionists, have supplied a Bluetooth remote as well. Pretty much the only thing other than the grounding post that I can legitimately lay claim to complain about with this product is that it took me no less than 2 goes to get the remote to actually pair to the unit, which is the first time I've had that issue. The amp one did it instantly. So make of that what you will. I mean, slacking on the part of WiiM, honestly. It's a lovely looking and feeling thing. We did a recent review of the Node Nano, and I think that's actually quite a sturdy little object for £300. There's no getting around the fact that this feels nicer. Is it as absolutely bulletproof substantial as a Cambridge Audio MX-N10? Maybe not, but that doesn't have a display, and it does about 1/5 the number of things that the Ultra does. So, you know, it's pretty much all bases covered. Now, in this tidal wave of positivity, I do want to make something clear, and I'm sure that people will vehemently disagree with me in the comments because that's the nature of YouTube. This is an extremely impressive product, and the app is unconditionally stable. As a means of browsing and listening to music, as distinct from being able to tweak the EQ, being able to do all the different things that WiiM allows you to do, it is not as nice to use as Blue OS. It's probably not as nice, actually no, it is definitely not as nice to use as Cambridge Audio's Stream Magic. Little things like not being able to do a full tile view of albums. I've had some issues with the search function. It goes like the clappers, but it doesn't necessarily respond to the search terminology that I would normally use across Rune, across some of the other apps that I use. Although obviously you can use this on Rune as well because WiiM's got that sorted, obviously. Once you've done all of your EQs and your setups and you're just listening to this product, I would say that I don't like using the app as much as I like some of the key competition. Your mileage will undoubtedly vary on that, and I'm not going to state that I am the absolute voice of authority on this. We're all looking for different things in our control apps. I just feel that in the broadening of specification, WiiM could really benefit from perhaps, I don't know, a day or two actually looking at what some key rivals do in terms of just looking through music libraries and so on and so forth, because it's not quite as pleasurable as some key rivals. Technically, obviously it's a piece of well-engineered, affordable digital equipment. It sounds extremely good. If you were to hold a gun to my head, I mean, I'd prefer you not to, but if we're dealing in absolutes, I do fractionally, because it remains on hand and I've been able to test them into the same Rotel amplifier, I do fractionally prefer the Node Nano. And I do feel that the Cambridge Audio MX-N10, which is more expensive and does a lot less, I'm at pains to repeat this again, does sound better still, and it has a format handling range that the Ultra can't get near. As a standalone streamer, I think that continues to make an enormous amount of sense. However, this is an extremely pleasant product to listen to. You can correct room issues that would completely flummox its competition. The nature of the space that I test in means actually it's fairly well behaved. It has one single notional room node at a point below which most of the speakers I use in that space actually operate at. All it does is actually flatter their low end response slightly. So I haven't really tinkered significantly with the EQ other than to note that it actually works. But I've really enjoyed listening to this product, and I've really enjoyed listening to vinyl through it. Yes, the phono stage is performing analog to digital conversion. It has to as a result of using the preamp and the other functionality. I promise you that after about a minute and a half you won't care. It's genuinely impressive. It's not good for a phono stage built into a streamer. It is entirely in keeping with devices at this sort of price point. I've genuinely enjoyed listening to it. HDMI ARC performance, took it upstairs, used it on the telly, which actually has functioning HDMI ARC. Yes, does all the things I want it to, and the response time to turning the television on and this thing firing up is faster than the WiiM amp sample that I had. So obviously some tweaks and improvements have been going on there. As I said right at the beginning, this product starts to ask questions about how you might build a system around it. I've been testing it with a Rotel A8 integrated amplifier. It's £50 more than the WiiM. It has no streaming of its own. It's formed a very, very nice partnership. It's a bit classic, it's a bit trad. As I'm an increasingly old person, that's the sort of thing that I might do. But you don't need to. Let's be honest about this. It's a digital preamp, so if you wanted to attach active speakers to it and just do that, that's going to work absolutely fine. Something I think that is a potentially fascinating solution is if you go onto eBay at the moment, and I did prior to writing the review for this, there's any number of really nice used power amplifiers from the usual suspects, the Roxans, the Cyruses, the Creek Audios, the Musical Fidelities of this world, and they represent very solid value for money. You could attach one of these to be the complete rest of your system and then just choose speakers to suit. WiiM, consciously or otherwise, is rewriting how we might build systems with devices like this. There's now everything from the very old school way of doing things, building around affordable integrated amps like the Rotel, to building systems that have no real comparison to anything that was being done 10 years ago, let alone 20. And I think that's genuinely exciting. I'm very positive about this. I'm inclined to suggest that if they continue in this vein, they essentially have affordable digital largely to themselves. Nevertheless, it's not to say that there is no competition, but by the time you actually start looking at all the other things it does, I can't put together a system that can do the same things as the Ultra for remotely the same price. Would I buy one? Well, as the videos that accompany this and other products that we've done, I've got lots and lots of stuff already. So do I need a product that does as much as the WiiM does? No, but I'm probably not the target market. I can make arguments that Blue Sound and Cambridge Audio are making nicer standalone streamers, but they have no answer to just how much this thing does and just how well it does it. And I would be foolish to try and make any arguments to the contrary. This product is incredibly flexible, it's incredibly clever, and more importantly than that, it does all of the things it sets out to do incredibly well. It's genuinely impressive. I've scrabbled around to find things that I don't like about it, and there aren't many. I think they need to put a grounding post on the back for the phono stage, and I do really want them to just tweak the app to make it, give me the option to use it in a way that I would like and prefer to use these things, but that's the limit of it. This product is absolutely extraordinary. There will of course be a written review to accompany it, which will, broadly speaking, also say that it's absolutely extraordinary, and I can see it selling by the articulated lorryful. If you've enjoyed this review, thank you very much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There will be more of these reviews. And who knows, there's an ever so slightly gradual trend to them hopefully being slightly less half-arsed in what they are and what they cover. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.